What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the FantasyHolics. It's week 2 in the NFL season. Hopefully, everybody watching has gotten off to a good start in their leagues. And whether or not you have or haven't, we're here to help you out. How did your first week of competition go?
Yeah, I was just as happy as a clam could be. I had the Sunday ticket for the first time. Last year, I streamed a lot of games through my phone, doing some pirating of the apps, if you will. So I was just excited to sit down. I watched all of the Falcons game. I watched the Chargers Dolphins game in that second slate. It was just a good week. There was a lot of good football played by everybody except for like Drake London, apparently. So yeah, it was a good week. I got no complaints on my end.
I had a lineup of T. Higgins and Drake London. So I had one league where my wide receivers gave me nothing, like literally nothing, which is
you scored as many points as NFL wide receivers did.
Yeah, unfathomable. But I hope you guys did well. Frank, did you guys do well in week 1?
Yeah, can't complain. A lot of good wins. I had one pitiful loss, like by half a point in my neighborhood league where there's a lot of bragging rights, a lot of prestige. Those hurt, but most of the leagues I pay closest attention to came out with a win. Avoided injury, avoided some questionable like time shares and target shares, and looking good into week 2.
Nice.
I just have to ask a question, and I could be way off base here, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who has an NFL team in the positive win column. Is that? I don't think the Giants, Colts, or Seahawks. Must be something with the color blue. I don't know.
I don't even think the Giants showed up. I mean, that was one of the most pathetic performances I've ever seen in my life. And to be out there in the rain, all those fans, like the pouring rain, just having it drench you, watching your team getting their ass kicked. That was brutal.
The rain may have been the highlight of those fans' night.
Yeah.
There was a stretch in that Giants game where I swear, like it was Jones dropped back and then he kind of scrambled and then the line collapsed and it looked like the same play on a replay 5 times. And I'm like,
embarrassing.
Am I watching a replay? The same thing for 2 series in a row. It was unbelievable.
Embarrassing. That's just the word, embarrassing. But let's get into our week 2 action. Games of the week. Bo, let's start with you. Your game of the week. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to actually come at this with 2 teams that are winless in the young NFL season. I'm going with the Los Angeles Chargers at the Tennessee Titans. This is a game that I feel like in 2015 would probably be the most exciting one out there. Austin Eckler versus Derrick Henry, right? 2 of the older fellas that are still staying strong at the running back position. Keenan Allen versus D-Hop. It's got everything to love, except for these guys are going to be playing on little rascals and out there with walkers instead of peak performances. But actually, all these guys look pretty good in week 1. Both of their teams were fighting down to the wire for wins, and both of them just came up short. Obviously that Miami and Chargers game week 1 that Pat talked about was almost an instant classic in my eyes. It was just literally scoring back and forth. And I don't necessarily think this will be the case this week where we see that much scoring, but I do think you'll see a lot of these big names find the end zone. I think Derrick Henry finds the end zone. Eckler, I wouldn't be shocked to see D-Hop get in there either. I think this is going to be a really good football game where it's just back and forth action. The Chargers are favored by 3 points. The over-under is 45, so it suggests to be a pretty decent football game.
That's an interesting game because typically Tennessee's where fantasy points go to die, but then you play the Chargers, and Chargers games are like where points go to thrive. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Patrick, game of the week. What do you got?
Game of the week. Usually the Thursdays suck, but at least this one's going to be a barn burner with the Eagles and the Vikings. Be a lot of offense. The Brant was right last week. The Patriots almost pulled off a shocker against the Eagles, and Eagles might not be fully set with their new coordinators yet. Minnesota defense looked better. I think this is the year that Kirk Cousins sort of sheds that choke in primetime label. I think he gets one, and this could be the week. Both running games are a total question mark. I think it's going to be a lot of passing, a lot of scoring, maybe a Dolphins Chargers light on Thursday night.
All right, Brent, round us out. What do you have? Game of the week.
I'm going with the game that could be a defensive battle, and New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. Both those defenses came Jets. Yeah. Both those defenses came to play week 1, and I expect to see that the same way this week. And I know it's a fantasy show, but I want to see, Sauce up against CeeDee Lamb. I want to see those lines getting after the quarterbacks. What are we going to do to move the ball? This game could end up 3-0, and the ball never moves. But this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out defensive battle, I think. I think the over-under is set at 38.5 points. So it is probably the lowest scoring game of the week. I haven't gone through all of them yet. I know the Cowboys are 9-point favorites. I'm sorry, I don't think they cover that spread just with how good those defenses are going to be. I'm excited to watch this game and see if these defenses are as legit as they performed on this past week.
Brent, I actually have a follow-up question to that. With the Aaron Rodgers injury, now Zach Wilson stepping in to that offense, where do you see Garrett Wilson's value now? Is he a must-start? Is he someone you kind of just stagger in their lineups? Like, what do you do with asking for?
I mean, we talked about this on the Fat Boy Show, and I think that Garrett Wilson is still a must-start guy. He's a guy that last year, even with Zach Wilson and all the other quarterbacks they threw in there, he did just fine. I know he had some up and down weeks, but I do believe that that Garrett Wilson's value is still in that. It's probably not that top 3 tier that Patrick had him, but I think he's still there at that bottom tier of wide receiver ones, though, in the top 12 still.
Pat was all in on Garrett Wilson.
We're like taking him first round next year, and then, man, just.
What do you think? How do you? Yeah, you still think he gets there? You still think he's going to be a must start?
I would rather start him and have a bad day than bench him and watch him go crazy. I almost think Garrett Wilson likes a crappy pass so he could bat it to himself. Like, watch this, guys. Watch this. Let me snag this. Let me contort my body. I'm going to be a human highlight for the rest of the year.
If I may here, the best part, too, is that Garrett Wilson was 5 for 5 for 39 yards and a touchdown with a quarterback he didn't spend any time practicing with this offseason. The cadences were different. The rhythm was different. The timing is different. These guys start getting some practice together. Garrett Wilson's going to come out and show folks he's just fine. I've got some friends that are worried about him. Nonsense. I still love Garrett Wilson. I still think he gets to be a top 3 dynasty asset next season.
Okay, yeah, I'm one of those friends who's worried. I have been in a bunch of redraft leagues, and dynasty is different, but redraft, it's like a sprint. It's not a marathon, and you can't hold on to these guys, or I'm not whether I want to put them on the trading block or not. So it's interesting to hear that everybody's in unison here. So maybe I'll take your advice and start them next week against the Cowboys. Let's move on to our studs, duds, QB position. Brant, that's you.
So my QB stud is going to take a lot of people by shock here, and I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield. He's coming He's coming off a 21 for 34 performance, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Now he gets to play the Chicago Bears, who just made Jordan Love a top 5 quarterback this past week. And Baker Mayfield has better pass catching weapons than Love has. I really think that if you need to go out and stream a quarterback, if you were the guy that drafted Aaron Rodgers, Baker Mayfield could end up with a top 10 fantasy performance this week against the Chicago Bears. I don't see any downfall against the defense. Nothing looked good. Nothing looked like it was working for Chicago this past week.
And what about your dud?
My dud? Jordan Love. He's going. I know he had a great game, top 5 performance there against Chicago. He went 15 of 27 for 245 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a great performance against the Chicago Bears. Let's see how he does against the ball-hawking secondary there in Atlanta, who forced 2 picks with Bryce Young last week. Let's see how Jordan Love does with the defense that actually is a little more capable of stopping the quarterback and making him actually put a little pressure on him.
Are we believers in Jordan Love, everybody? Or was last week just an aberration?
Come back with me next week and I'll tell you.
Okay. Well, what do you
I
think?
tuned into the Fat Boys on Sunday morning, and I saw a question that was, how much do you downgrade Jordan Love, ... And then he goes out and has that game. I'm like, okay, maybe the Bears are really bad.
I'm gonna say this now, and I hope I'm wrong, but if Christian Watson plays this week, I think Jordan Love has an explosive game because Atlanta will not match up well against speed this offseason. Carolina has their fastest wide receiver this week, and a guy like Adam Thielen. I think I could stay step for step with him as long as he's not going side to side. Maybe even still not then probably. But there was no speed threat. Christian Watson will burn Atlanta 3 or 4 times next week if he plays. I'm hoping that hamstring issue keeps him out one more week. As much as I love Watson and want Watson to do well, I don't want him to do well against my Falcons. But yeah, the defense is going to be better. They're going to generate a little bit of pressure, which helps. And when you do have a secondary that features guys like AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates, it's going to be a little harder for Jordan Love, who's coming in, still relatively inexperienced at reading defenses because he just doesn't have that many starts under his belt. So we'll see. I'm with Brant. The jury is still out. I think he's got a chance to be really good, but I want to see it again this week.
All right, let's move on to the running back position, which I will be doing. My stud is Travis Etienne. I know he's going against the Chiefs, who are getting Chris Jones back. But last week, he had 18 rushing attempts for 77 yards and a touchdown. Also caught all 5 of his targets for 27 yards. I think this is going to be a very competitive game. I think with the addition of Chris Jones, I think Trevor's going to have to get the ball out a little quicker. A couple dump offs here. I can see Travis having like 6-7 receptions. He seems like he's the bell cow there. I know Bigsby's there, but didn't really see too much action, especially towards the goal line. So I like Travis Etienne. I think he's an RB going forward who you start every week and not even think about it. Going into the season, I had some questions about his role, but it definitely seems like he's the man there in Jackson. And in a game that's going to be competitive, and I think high scoring, I think he's going to thrive. My dud is Cam Akers and Kyren Williams, both of them. The Rams backfield in general. Cam Akers last week was brutal. 22 carries for 29 yards, 1 touchdown. Williams did better, 15 carries, 52 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But I think that's a little bit of fool's gold, especially going against San Francisco and their defense, who allowed only 31 yards to Najee Harris last week and a total of 41 yards to the Pittsburgh Steelers in general last week. I think that's a recipe for disaster. I know Williams was a huge target on the waiver wire this week in particular, but even if you got him this week, if you have another option, I would go with another option. I would not start Williams or Akers if you can help it. Wide receiver position, Bo, what do you got?
Yeah, so Brant, it's gonna feel a little bit like I'm attacking your Seahawks this week, especially when we get into the DFS lineup. And I promise it wasn't intentional. I just liked a lot of what I saw out of the Detroit Lions last week in the Thursday game against the Chiefs. I've got Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. Sun God's been one of those players, especially last year, who just cemented his name. He's cornerback proof. I know Seattle's got some very good corners, but listen. If guys like Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell can both go for 119 yards, what's a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown going to do with 10 targets? Last week against the Chiefs, he had 9 targets, 6 receptions, 71 yards, and a touchdown. I think this guy comes back this week and puts up numbers very similar to that again. It's going to be one of those situations similar to with Jordan Love. And I know Seattle's secondary was very, very good last year, and they have the potential to be better when Devin Witherspoon comes back or starts playing, I guess I should say, since we haven't seen him in the NFL yet. But until that happens, I'm going to ride, especially studs like Amon-Ra St. Brown against that secondary.
I like a lot, man. What about your dud?
My dud of the week is one that's going to sound really familiar because I just hate the player. I hate the landing spot where he went this offseason. DJ Moore in the same game against the Tampa Bay Bucks. Listen, the Chicago Bears offense was putrid last week. I know we saw a lot of offenses come out, be stagnant, like the Giants, like the Steelers, the Bengals, and I think a lot of those offenses turned it around. The Bears, I don't see happening. Justin Fields' arm is iffy at best. His accuracy is wishy-washy. And in a game where they trailed almost the entire game, DJ Moore only got 2 targets, 2 receptions for 25 yards. That doesn't make me hopeful, especially not where he's drafted, especially not where his price tag is in DFS lineup still. I'm out on this one again until Justin Fields shows me something with his arm week in and week out. I just don't trust it. Cole Kmet's the only thing on that offense I'm willing to start that's not a running back or Justin Fields himself in fantasy right now. I don't trust DJ Moore. He's going to be a dud against this Tampa Bay defense.
All right, let's move on to the tight end position. Pat, what do you got for your stud?
My stud is well foreshadowed. It's Cole Kmet.
Nice. Did you guys plan that?
We
did not plan that. I was
no.
I'm like, the studs are kind of, the fine line between stud and dud in tight end is like 5 for 50. I think Hunter Henry was 5 for 50 with a touchdown and ended up tight end 1 this week. So Kmet has been much better lately. I think he's under the radar how good he's been. I look back since week 8 of last year, he's had at least 4 catches in every game. I think he's had 4 touchdowns since week 8. He had, I think he was top receiver last week. I don't know why they went to Kmet over the brand new toy with DJ Moore that they brought in to help Justin Fields. But I think the Bucs are going to blitz Fields like crazy, and that could lead to a lot of dump offs. Kmet's already getting the targets. He's had the catches. I know it was into last year, but the Bucs were really bad against tight end last year. They allowed 9 touchdowns, which was in the bottom end of the league. Last week, T.J. Hawkinson had, I think it was 11 catches on 12 targets. There's a lot of meat on the bone. I think Kmet could get 6 to 7 catches, 50 yards, and a score, which based on last week could be tight end 1.
All right, and what about your dud?
My dud is it's got to be Kyle Pitts. Oh my goodness, I really, really, really bought into the Desmond Ridder hype this year. I didn't like him last year. I didn't understand how Desmond Ridder wasn't pushing Mariota to the bench, and this year I bought into Ridder. I'm like, I'll just put my biases away. I'm going to give him a fresh start. And I don't know. I don't trust Ridder much at all. I think he completed a lot of his passes. I think he's leading the NFL in completion percentage now, but it's not going to Kyle Pitts. I don't like any pass catcher in that offense right now. And if I could avoid Kyle Pitts, I will. The Packers D's been pretty solid against tight end dating back to last year. I guess they let up a little bit to Cole Kmet last week, but I'm just not a fan of the passing game in Atlanta right now.
Well, what do you say to that? As a Falcon fan, do you approve?
It's easy to complete a lot of passes. Well, not a lot, because you'd have to throw a lot to complete a lot, and that just didn't happen. But when they're all to the guys of name Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson, who are behind you, it's pretty simple. I was very devastated by Drake London this week. Kyle Pitts kind of saved himself just because of how low the tight end position was last week with 1 deep catch. But yeah, it was ugly. I was definitely scratching my head. I mean, I couldn't be too mad as a fan because of the win and how dominant the run was, but as a fan of fantasy also, and an avid supporter and a guy who stomped my foot all off season about how great Drake London was going to be, my foot is now firmly planted in the back of my mouth. So there's that.
It's 1 week. It's 1 week. We'll see what happens.
There was a spill from last week where Pitts had to have been by himself by 30 yards in every direction going like this, and that was the icing.
He made the DB fall.
What?
He made the DB fall.
Yeah,
on the ground. It was just.
It's just not a good setup this week. I don't know if it's a good setup all year. I wanted to believe. I wanted to give him a clean start, a fresh slate, but man, after 1 week, I don't know about that passing game at all.
Let's move on to our DFS lineups. I don't have one this week for this right now, for the simple fact that when I tried to do one last week, my account was suspended, so I haven't put one together. So who won last week? Who won the pool last week?
Brant.
Hey, Brant. Brant, let's start with you since you won last week. What does your lineup look like this week?
I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and my quarterback is Baker Mayfield at 6,800. And I'm stacking him with Chris Godwin at 6,300 in that game. Like I said, I've already hit on it. I believe that game's going to be pass friendly for him. And I'm going to not back up this DJ Moore thing because I'm going to run it back with DJ Moore as my second wide receiver at 6,100. I'm going with Bijan for my first running back at 8,100 until he does me wrong. I think if you keep his price tag right there in the mid range of top tiers, I'm going to keep running Bijan Robinson. I'm going with my boy Kenneth Walker there at my RB2. I'm going to go with Calvin Ridley as my wide receiver 3. Diggs will be my flex at 8,000, and Sam Laporta's my tight end, and I'm going with the Giants defense against the Cardinals. I will pick any defense against the Cardinals
every week. I love it, man. What about you?
Does New York have a defense that we didn't see them on the field because the Cowboys offense was also never on the field?
Right. They stayed back. You know, they took the – it's okay. They were ready in Arizona, so I think they're fresh.
They're fresh this week. Yeah.
Yeah. If
be a lot drier.
If Joshua Dobbs runs shot over of the Giants defense, then we have some serious problems. But until that happens,
fair enough.
Patrick, your DFS lineup.
I'm starting with Russell Wilson at quarterback for 7,100. I think Judy will be back.
You're brave, man.
Washington struggled a lot more than I thought they would against the aforementioned Josh Dobbs. So I'm like, oh, okay. I don't think they're gonna be able to contain Russ that much. Be a big game from Judy Sutton. Maybe Marvin Mims shows up, get some Javonte Williams mixed in. Think he'll have a really good game there. Running back, I've got Rashad White. That Bears defense isn't going to be very good. I don't think they weren't very good. They were last year in almost everything. I think he's a really good value for 6,300. I was going to go AJ Dillon if Aaron Jones were to miss this week. He's a pretty good value at 7,000. If there's no Aaron Jones, if there's no Christian Watson, that could be a pretty good spot for him. I think he's cheap enough to be a good contrarian play. We'll see how that goes. For receivers, I got Amon-Ra. If Puka Nacua can have that big of a game against the Seahawks, I can't imagine what Sun God's going to do. Should be a good one. Should be a pretty good value at 8,100. I took DJ Moore. I agree it could be a disaster. He only got 2 catches last week, but he's got that familiarity with Tampa Bay. I ran some numbers in his last 6 games. He has 53 catches, 706 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So I feel like maybe he's a thorn in their side. Maybe one more time, maybe he can give Fields some advice on how to pass against the Bucs. And other receiver I took was Nico Collins. He looked really good last week. He had that immediate rapport with Stroud. Colts defense, not going to be – they're still probably reeling from last week. They're not going to be good at all this year. Collins looked really good. I think he's finally the player people have been wanting him to be, and C.J. Stroud helps a lot to become a star player when you get rid of Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll. And tight end, I went George Kittle. Be a good divisional battle with the Rams in a game is that game going to be a lot better than it looked a week or so ago? I had the Rams as one of the worst teams in the league, and I don't know if the Seahawks are really that bad or if the Rams are that good or both, but Kittle for 6,200 could be a pretty good grab. My flex was Zay Flowers. God, he looked good. He was electric. I wish I'd taken him in more drafts. I knew about him. I knew he was good, but he looked I don't even know what to say. I was shocked. I was blown away. Every time the ball got in his hands, he was juking people, juking linebackers, cornerbacks. It was fun to watch. He's still a good value at 6,500. He's not going to be 6,500 for a long time. And the last pick I picked was the Chargers defense. I think Ryan Tannehill looked really, really, really bad last week. There's got to be a pick six in that game. There could be a fumble or two. I think that'll be a source for some cheap points, and hope I can win this week for some bragging rights.
All right, Bo. Finish it off. What do you got?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this a little bit, and again, Brant, you can slap me Friday when you see me at work again, but I've got Jared Goff at quarterback at 7,300. Again, this is more to do with Jared Goff and less to do with the Seahawks, but Goff looked really good. He looked poised Thursday night in front of the entire nation with another 10 days off, even more time to gel with his team. I think he comes out and just has himself a good game. And I also put at my first running back, I've got Jahmyr Gibbs in here at $5,800. The value was just too good. He looked impressive in his debut on a less amount of touches than I expect him to have this week. Dan Campbell mentioned bringing him in slowly. I think that's over with now. He looked too good in his touches. I've got Josh Jacobs at my second running back against the Buffalo Bills. Again, look at what not necessarily Dalvin Cook, but look at what Breece Hall did in his 10 touches against that defense. Obviously, Josh, you saw that in person this week. I think Josh Jacobs can do that as well. And then I did stack Jared Goff with Sun God. Again, Patrick said it. Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell, and then Sun God. I mean, there's levels to this stuff, and Sun God is well above anything in the Rams pass catching game. So he's going in the lineup this week. And then I came back with Devontae Adams, who was a little disappointing last week. I think that has to get better in a game where the Raiders are going to have to be playing catch up, in my opinion, with Buffalo. So there's that 7,500. And then I'm rolling the dice against my own team. Christian Watson's in my lineup. I will obviously go back and change that if he's ruled out. But if he plays, I expect him. This could be one of those games where Christian Watson has multiple touchdowns on just a few catches, because I just don't see anybody in that Atlanta secondary who can stay with him stride for stride. Maybe Jeff Okudah if he plays this week. We'll see. I've actually got the tight end position crossed out 3 times because there were 3 guys at the same price tag that I was interested in. But I ended up going with Dalton Kincaid again, because apparently my brain was fixated on 3 games when I was setting this FanDuel lineup, because that's all I chose from. But Kincaid, I just really liked what I saw. Obviously, he's not going to be the number 1 target with Stephon Diggs in town, but I just liked how often Diggs did look, or Allen looked his way, how often Kincaid was on the field. They weren't shy about bringing him into the fold. So I just think that just keeps getting better every week. Again, flex, Brant, you and I are in tune on this one. Bijan Robinson's not coming out of my lineup until I can't afford to keep him in my lineup. I just loved what I saw there. And then I did take Tampa Bay's defense, because if you want to talk about pick sixes, Justin Fields is the guy who's going to throw one this week. And I will not come in last of those of us that are able to turn in scores this week. I'm coming for you, fellas.
All right, sounds good. Before we close the show, does anybody have any final thoughts, anything they would like to add?
Yeah, I got one thing. Josh, if you would do me a favor and not go to any more NFL games that feature quarterbacks that I need to perform well for my fantasy teams, I would appreciate it.
I take full responsibility for that as well. It hurt me too. I have a bunch of Garrett Wilson shares in redraft, and now I don't know what to do. But you guys helped me out today, so I appreciate that. No games for me.
We'll be wrong. So it is what it is.
All right, listen, if you want to follow the show, you can just subscribe right now to our YouTube channel, where we'll be coming every week, giving you the best advice that we can give you every week. Also, make sure to subscribe and follow the Fat Boys Dynasty podcast. Bo and Brant right here. They do the show every week, and they also do a live start and sit on Sundays to help you with your lineup. So make sure you tune into that as well. So thank you for joining us. Until next week, we'll see you for another episode of the FantasyHolics.